right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Take Back My Brain. I am your host, Laurie Hammer. And today, since I mainly have women viewing, I want you ladies to share this with your man because we're going to talk with Dr. John Olson. I call him Dr. T because he is a testosterone expert. He's a chiropractor. He's a functional blood work specialist, and he has an amazing program to naturally boost testosterone. So I'm super excited about this episode because it's a little off the norm. But I think all of you are going to enjoy it. So share it with every man out there, and all you ladies, this is what you need to pay attention to what's going on with your husband because it could be a testosterone issue. So Dr. John, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, so I have to ask, why testosterone? What drew you to want to work with testosterone in general? Because let's
Yeah,
just
it's a
say
good
that
question.
men don't usually like to come and get help. And so I want to know what your driving force was.
Yeah, you know how they say people sometimes discover things through their own personal challenges and through
Yeah.
their desperation? Well, that's a lot of what I went through. So as I started to hit 40, I was a very busy chiropractor here in Utah, and I had multiple clinics, and I started to find that I was getting just really, really tired,
Mm.
and it was just life was getting it was just harder each day. And I kept up a good diet and I still tried to exercise. And so I was really confused about what was going on. So I started to delve further into my hormones and I did some blood work and learned that I was starting to have low testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that caught me off guard. No guy wants to know that their
Okay,
testosterone is
wants to know that.
starting to go down.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a hit to to the manhood. And so I started to talk to some of my peers and that male peers and they said, well, it's about that time. You need to go to the clinic and, start looking about getting your testosterone injection. And so then I started to look into, that type of thing. And I just didn't really like that path for me. I've
Sure.
always been more of a holistic practitioner. And I thought, there's got to be something I can do naturally
Mm-hmm.
to help my body function better, right?
Right, right.
So that led me on a journey. I ended up selling a few of my clinics, and I took time and studied around the country, and I studied testosterone, I studied blood work, and I just got really impressed with that was the path that I needed to help men
Awesome.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so much misinformation out there. And I think there's a stigma, like nobody wants to admit, like we were talking that, hey, my testosterone's low and we kind of want to do it in secret. So that's why we go to the clinic and stuff. But I think there's a lot of men out there suffering and they don't know that it's a low testosterone issue, right? So can you tell us some of the symptoms of low testosterone? I mean, you mentioned fatigue and stuff, but there's some more symptoms that I just don't think people are aware of.
Yeah. Yeah, great question. And so women listening to this, okay, just listen. If your man is having a hard time getting his honey-do list done now because he has no energy, he gets home from work and he just wants to lay on the couch because he's so tired, that's a sign. So fatigue, low stamina, um, low libido. So that's probably the number one thing that causes guys to go into the clinic is
Sure,
because
because
they're
no guy
having
wants to have
trouble.
low libido.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Maybe their
Um,
wife does, but they don't.
yeah, but definitely that's a factor that affects a lot of men as they start to age and their testosterone drops. And then there starts to become a brain issue that
Okay.
they started to see. And so there starts to become a problem with mental clarity. And
Mhm.
that was something I started to notice with myself too, especially come like afternoon time. It's like my brain wanted to shut down, and I have entrepreneurs that signed up on my program and they're working with me and they said, "Hey doc, do you know that I used to only schedule my day between like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. and like 1 p.m. Because after like 1 or 2, I was I knew I wasn't worth anything, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so they're able to start to feel their day more, and they're like, you don't know how valuable that is to me to
Right.
be able to continue through my day with having clarity and energy through that. And yeah, so brain fog's a big one. And
Okay.
what goes along with this, and pay attention, women, because if you find that your husbands or the men in your life are starting to become more depressed,
Yeah.
and they're just not wanting to take risks, they're kind of just going along with life. That's a big sign that I've noticed with low testosterone.
Right. Right. I find it interesting because, I deal with a lot of perimenopause, menopausal women. And kind of when we get into that stage, it's like, the kids are leaving. And so, like, now what do we do? And we're like,
Mhm.
okay, what's the next thing for me to do? And then the husbands are like, okay, it's time to take a break. We're not doing any risks anymore. All this kind of stuff. And it really could be like we take it as a season of life, but it
Mhm.
really could be, this low testosterone, which I think is really chronic. It's like a chronic epidemic among men, and nobody's really talking about it. And as you're saying these things, I'm like, I really need to maybe do that in my own house too. Is like, hey, let's check that out, because we're just in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of season of our life.
Mhm.
And it's good if both the man and the woman can be on the same page, but if there's a hormone, we're always thinking about women, hormone issues, but we really need to look at our man and not be frustrated by something that might be a real physical reason for why he doesn't do the honeydew list, or he's not emotionally connected, or he just forgets things. And you're like, what is wrong with you lately?
Yes. You know, and something else that I found is that it becomes tougher for men to deal with problems. So when their testosterone drops, they have less of an ability to deal with resistance or to deal with issues.
Right,
And what I found as I observe patients of mine is that then it leads them into more to take on like alcohol and different habits that
hmm,
help to just kind of like negate that depression, that stress that they feel.
yeah,
And so as we work with a man and help to get their testosterone naturally coming up, they're able to deal more with problems and be able to just work through them. And I just think, how much in a relationship, right, between, at home, that you're always going to have things you got to work through, right? But
right,
if a guy hormonally starts to become so low in his testosterone, he's not really going to have that energy to want to work through something.
right,
Right.
right. I have a lot of women say to me, my husband just checks out. Like all of a sudden
Yes.
he just checks out, and he like doesn't think, there's any problem there. Maybe there's a home problem. It's like maybe the dishwasher overflowed or something, and they like just check out and leave.
Mm.
They're like, this is just bizarre. Like, what is this thing going on? And you're saying it could be a low testosterone issue.
Yeah. I mean, besides just we know the gender difference, you
Sure.
women, your brains going a million miles an hour all the time, right?
Yeah.
And as guys, we our brains move a little bit different, and we like to check out at certain times. It's just with low testosterone now it becomes more and more of a daily thing,
Right.
where we feel like I just need to check out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear that a lot. And then I have a few men that have come to see me that um they've lost muscle mass. They're like, I can't gain muscle I work out, I'm fasting, I'm eating right, great mindset, and just their physique has shifted, and that really bothers them. They don't want to be flabby. They don't want, all this kind of stuff. Their testosterone is running low. And so can you address that a little bit? Is that a kind of a piece of the puzzle as well?
It is, and I'm glad you brought that up because that was something I went through because I've always worked out, but then I noticed, okay, I don't have that muscle tone that I used to have, right?
Yeah.
So that is a very common problem with low testosterone, is that ability to maintain muscle tone. And then when you go to the gym, you get really fatigued very fast.
Right.
And so there's a whole new way of working out that is helpful to men to boost their testosterone.
I love
And
that.
so that's
Yeah.
something that me and taking on and working with actually a natural bodybuilder partner of mine, we created customized workout plans because there really is a way that you need to start to lift weights
Mm-hmm.
that boost testosterone. Okay.
Okay.
And so there's a balance in life. And as we age, a lot of us guys like to go to the gym, and we used to go like 4, 5, 6 times a week,
Yeah.
and what I had to learn for myself is I only go now 3 days a week. I have to have enough recovery time, but
Yeah.
then I also have to increase weight each week. So it's a progressive overload that you're trying to do in your weightlifting that
Mm-hmm.
helps to boost testosterone. But the only way you can do that is if you give yourself enough recovery time to
Yeah.
allow the tendons and the muscles and everything to heal from your previous training.
Yeah. And that's what I hear from men too, is like, I'm just more sore. And then you don't want to
Mhm.
go. And, I hear that with women too. And I see a lot of low testosterone in women too. Maybe we can chat about that in a
Yeah.
minute too.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but I know the go-to, as you were saying in the beginning, is we'll just go get your testosterone shot. And
Hmm.
um, what are the side effects of that? Because in my estimation and in my research, there's some pretty significant risks that I don't think are being talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things that worried me when I started to look into that type of a therapy. And so some of the main side effects that I see on a daily basis working with men is uh, so if men start to inject themselves with testosterone, then their body is going to think they have, well, then they will have optimal level of testosterone. So the body's going to say, okay, well, you don't have to worry about producing any more testosterone because
Right.
you already have this certain level, right?
Hmm.
Well, a lot of testosterone is made in our testicles, okay, in the testicles. Well, their testicles are going to start to shrink. Now that's something that a lot of men, I mean, they kind of I guess have to compromise with. But
Right.
that's something that a lot of men don't understand is that their testicles are going to shrink, and with that, because their testicles aren't working anymore, they're not producing sperm. They're going to become infertile.
Mm.
Now, here's one of the biggest things that I felt called to do this is because now currently one in at the age of 30, 1 in 4 men have severely low testosterone.
Wow.
And it's getting worse each year.
Hmm.
So something in our environment, something's going on that is creating this problem where men are having this really low testosterone issue at such a young age. Okay.
Right.
And so I started to look at that and I was thinking, okay, well, guys in their late 20s, 30s, they're probably still going to want to have children someday, if they don't
Exactly.
already,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And so if they just go and start doing TRT, they're going to be infertile. And hopefully they get told that this is a side effect. But but regardless, then what is their choice then? Is it to just feel miserable every day or take this and be infertile,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And so that's where, especially women listening, if your man is around 30, like if you still want to have a family, you definitely need to have them check out this program and how to naturally do that because that really worries me the way that the stats are going.
Yeah.
Uh, and even last week in front of Congress, there was a lot of healthcare uh, workers that were talking to Congress, and
Hmm.
they even mentioned that teenage boys now have half the sperm count as what they used to have.
Yeah.
That's that's teenage boys. Wow.
I know. I had a young man come in and he was, I think, 22 or 3 at the time and just kind of low energy. I mean, you probably wouldn't even thought to even check his testosterone levels, right? But they were
Mhm.
trying to get pregnant, couldn't get pregnant, and it checked the lady's hormones and, newlyweds, been married a couple years, still hadn't gotten pregnant. Hers are good. So I'm like, well, we should probably check his. And
Yeah.
basically the kid didn't make any testosterone, right?
Yeah.
And this is a kid
Yeah.
that ate super healthy, like
Yeah.
his entire life, and exercise. He's a runner, all these good things. So when you say, there's low testosterone is affecting fertility, it's so true. But at the same time, you have all of these young men, like, I'm doing the right things, I'm
Hmm.
doing all
Hmm.
this and my testosterone is still low. So what do you think some of those contributing factors are that we're have this epidemic of low testosterone among young men and then even old men? I mean, because you should
Yeah.
age well, your testosterone is going to naturally go down, right?
Sure.
But it still should be a level where you can still maintain your virility and your masculinity, and you should
Mhm.
still feel well.
Yeah. 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 And so there's, I'm gonna mention a few more points before I tell you what I think is going on in our lifestyle. But some other risk factors that are very important is blood clots
Oh yeah,
and then prostate cancer, and then prostate's enlarging, which is called BPH, right?
right,
And and so I only bring that up because you mentioned, elderly men. So like as men age, there should be a natural, they should still be able to be healthy and feel like a man, right?
right.
So that's my goal. And what I tell guys that are on testosterone therapy and their labs are coming back really unhealthy is, you're on a track. Do you want to have a heart attack by the time you're 65?
Right.
Or do you want to live till you're 90, 100, still being able to hike up a mountain, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so there's a give and take that that a man's gonna have to decide. But to boost testosterone naturally, that's a lifestyle change, right? And
Yeah.
so you asked me, what are some of the big factors that I think is affecting this?
Yeah.
One is, one is in our daily environment, there's a ton of plastics around us.
Mm-hmm.
And these plastics and plastic water bottles, just all over, those block our testosterone receptors. So androgen receptors on our cells get blocked by these compounds.
Right.
And so one of the things that I teach guys what to do is how to start to remove those out of their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's a lot. I mean, especially in women too, in skincare, and makeup, all sorts of different hormone disrupting chemicals, right?
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. We're inundated with them.
yes, yes. And it's almost like you have to kind of be like, some of my family looks at me like, dude, you're going kind of crazy now on the other spectrum. But it's like, but you don't realize how much there is in our environment, right? Until you start to
Right.
do that.
I mean,
Yeah.
everything is packaged. Like,
Yeah.
even if you're buying grass-fed organic cheese, it still comes in wrapped in plastic.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's some things that we're not able to avoid, but um, or even grass-fed meats, or you're buying the best things, but it's still vacuum sealed in plastic or whatever it might be. So
Hmm.
you can't
Yeah.
avoid it all, but there's a lot of things, as you're saying, that you can take out, whether
Yeah.
it's water bottle or your storage containers or, so many things.
Yes. Don't leave that plastic water bottle in a hot car and then be drinking that
Just
water
don't
out of
use a plastic
it.
water
So
bottle.
bad.
Yeah, so bad for you. Yeah. And I always teach my clients too, John, don't buy, if you're gonna, buy plastic water or plastic water bottles, um,
Yep.
buy them in the winter. To be honest, to just
Mhm.
like stock up, because when you're buying water in the summer, do you know how hot it gets in those trucks?
Oh yeah.
They're sitting out in the sun before they're loaded and they're put on the shelves. You see all these things, out and
Mhm.
about. And like, just don't, because they're already been heated when they're
Yeah.
packaged. And then when they're sitting out, even just waiting to get on the shelves, there's so
Mhm.
much plastic in what you're drinking. It
Yes, for
blows my
sure.
mind. Yeah, it blows my mind.
It is crazy. And so, that's one thing. If I was to mention a few more main contributing factors that I think is affecting testosterone, one is insulin. So
Hmm.
blood sugar problems.
Yes.
And we know in our world, especially in our country, there's a lot of people that have blood sugar issues, right?
Mhm. A lot.
And and it's a real problem. What we found is that every time insulin spikes, it actually reduces your testosterone. So it
Okay.
becomes harder for a man to naturally make testosterone when his blood sugar keeps going up and down, up and down. And so that's one of the things that we teach a man is how to start to regulate his blood sugar better through his
Hmm.
diet. Yeah. And then in case you haven't noticed, Lori, I'm sure you have with all the people you see, but a lot of people are stressed out nowadays, right?
Yes, yes, they
I
are.
mean,
That's why I deal
like,
with the anxiety piece of it.
yes, it's so bad now. Everyone's so stressed out, and I mean, there's a lot going on in our world. You know, our economy is really hard. There's a lot of things going on, and as a man, um, a lot of men take on themselves trying to be a provider of the family, right? And
Right.
so financial stress it is one of the most it is the highest stress factor in men. With the last survey that I saw, that like 80% of men said they were severely stressed out about finances and about money.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure.
so that's, starting to reduce the stress levels is super important. And so we teach guys how to work on reducing that stress, because when we stress, we release a hormone called cortisol, right?
Right.
We've heard of that. Cortisol negatively impacts testosterone. So that's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah, cortisol can wreak a lot of havoc. We need it, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
even with the women I work with, we're always like, how do we bring down the cortisol? How do we not have this, adrenaline rush all the time? And so
Hmm.
much of it is this fast pace, got to do everything kind of lifestyle.
Yeah. And then when we're dragging, then we just drink all this caffeine because we got to maintain
Yeah,
our energy level. So we're constantly keeping our nervous system on go, 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 go,
for
right?
sure. For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the last
So,
thing I would just say, sorry, the last thing I would just say is sleep is the
yeah,
quality of sleep. Isn't it getting worse and worse?
it
I
is.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because when
And
your
so,
cortisol is so high, then you can't sleep. If your insulin is messed up, you can't sleep. All these things
mhm.
play play together. So yeah, if you can't sleep, you can't heal.
Yeah. And during good quality sleep is actually when we build the testosterone the best. And so in our program we teach men how to start to have a healthier sleep cycle, what lifestyle changes to start to do, getting out there and getting sunlight, first thing in the morning
Yes,
is super, super helpful. Uh, and so there's natural things you can do. I'm sure you can talk about some of your favorite things for sleep and that, but that really is a huge thing for guys. Yeah.
it is. It's a huge thing for everyone. Let's just be really honest.
Yeah.
So if we
Hmm.
want all of our hormones to be well, if we want our brain fog to go away, you have to sleep. I mean, how much better do you feel when you've had 7 to 8 hours of straight sleep as opposed to feeling hungover when you get interrupted six?
Yes.
It makes
Hmm.
such a big difference. My dog is going through, I don't know what now. Um, and he's behind me, but he's like got allergies or something. So he's like pacing all night long and we're trying to figure out what the issue is. And I'm not getting sleep. It's like I have a baby in the house again and my brain fog is like, okay, I feel really stupid today, right?
Uh-huh.
And so it's just such a good reminder of how valuable sleep is because if when you don't have it, you realize how much you need it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can't run on
Yeah.
empty.
No, that's right. That's right. And there's different reasons why we don't sleep good, right? And so that's one of the things is as I talk to men, as I figure out, where is it during the sleep process that they seem to be having a problem? Is it falling asleep, or is it they fall asleep fast, but then they wake up a lot,
Mhm.
right? And so there's different things we can do to help them, depending on what seems to be their issue with sleep, right?
Right. Yeah. Same thing. I work with women. Well, and the men I see too is like,
Hmm.
yeah, what is your sleep issue? And then, there's very specific supplements, techniques, and stuff that you can use to help that
Hmm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to reasons why there's low testosterone, I'm being really careful in my wording on this. Um, especially with the young men, do you feel like anything that they've been, um, inoculated with or jabbed with since they were a baby has anything to do with that?
Yeah. So we have found that a person's toxic load affects their hormones, right? And so we'll talk about it this way.
Okay.
The things that are put into your body as a little child, usually, well, it does have some sort of toxins in it,
Yes.
right? In
Mhm.
what's being administered.
So
And
lots of heavy
so,
metals.
yes, heavy metals, which we know is very disruptive to the nervous system and the
Right.
hormones.
Hmm.
So, and as that builds in the system, that starts to it starts to really take a toll. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good point to bring up because that as we know, the schedule of the amount of those type of inoculations has never been higher than it is now, especially in
Right.
our country, right?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
yeah. And so that is part of the process of helping to boost testosterone naturally is to start to work on filtering that and detoxing that out of the body, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. It's
as
really hard to raise hormone levels if you don't detox.
yes, for
Yeah.
sure. Because
Yeah.
our liver gets so bogged down and and you can talk on this too. Like, I mean, I tell when we store all this fat right around our organs, and a lot of that fat has these toxic, byproducts in it, and that's how the liver's trying to preserve it, trying to protect us. And
Yeah.
so those fat cells become really hard to break down,
Right.
right? If we're not able to detox our system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And detox is not a fast process, right? And you have
No.
to be very targeted, very specific. And it's just not, hey, let's just go get a 7-day liver cleanse. It doesn't work that
Yeah.
way. I mean, you can
Yes.
poop out some stuff, but it's never going to get to your cellular level. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm sure you can speak to that. Like you have to be super targeted and give it time for these things
Yes.
to turn around. Yeah.
And that's why we know that this is a lifestyle thing, right? Because it's
Yep.
it's you have to on a daily basis be doing these things to feed your body and to heal it, right?
Right, right.
And
And
we
it goes
do
back to
that.
what you were saying earlier, John. Do you want to live to 69 or do you want to live to, 89?
Hmm.
And I think that's true for any of us, you don't have to do any of the things, that we talk about on this podcast or whatever. But it is the quality of life and, the longevity that you would like to have. So I know I choose to be crazy like you and kind of go to the extreme on some things, which I don't think are extreme because I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't want to put that in my body anymore. Now that I know, I can't unknow it. So, we threw out all the Tupperware. So
Yeah. Yes. I
won't
know.
go to
It's
any
like
more of those parties.
it's like women tell your man, it's like, please stop eating out. No more fast food, right? No more fast food and
Yeah,
really limit alcohol. I tell
that's
guys,
huge.
I'm not saying
Address
you
that
can't.
one. Yeah,
Yes.
big deal.
Yeah, and that is a big deal. And actually a lot of guys determine they're like, I don't know if I want to do the program because you're just going to tell me that I can't drink anymore, right? And I say, well, I said alcohol definitely affects our body,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And it ruins our sleep. We all know if we binge the night before, like we have terrible sleep that night, right?
Oh,
And and so what I do is I tell guys, okay, I want you to limit to 2 drinks a week.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So save that if you want that for your Saturday night or your Friday night or something like that. But that's doing our program, that's the most that I want you to have on a weekly basis is 2 drinks.
Right.
And otherwise. And I talked to him about how it affects our liver
Mm-hmm.
and actually especially like beer and that it's very it creates more estrogen and
Yeah.
so go figure, all these
Uh-huh.
beer commercials they have these manly guys doing that but
Yeah, you don't turn out so manly.
yeah so it's definitely something that you want to get a grasp on,
Yeah.
and that. But I can't tell you though, when we start to help give guys direction and help boost their testosterone naturally, they start to look at life a little bit more empowered. And that's one of the most fulfilling things to me is I feel like in our society now, men are becoming more go along with the flow and not standing up for the morals and the values that I feel like our country and that we need as good masculine role models,
Correct.
and that comes from this lack of testosterone, these lifestyle factors. And
Yes.
so if I can help to empower a man to become a better leader of their family, to become more self energized and want to take risks and want to help uh, provide better for his family. I mean, that just affects so many lives, and I feel
Yes.
like our country needs that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I couldn't agree with you more. Um, what kind of testing do men need to get done in order to see they're like feeling all these things? You're like, yeah, I don't have this positive power anymore. I kind of feel more
Mhm.
feminized lately.
Mhm.
What kind of testing do they need to get done?
Yeah. So good question. Really, what they need to get a very extensive blood work panel done,
Yeah.
especially for the first time, because there's so many things, as you know, that we can tell about someone and how their organ function and their body internally is doing,
Mm.
right? And this is the problem when you go to a lot of the testosterone clinics is they're pulling just total testosterone, free testosterone, and usually like the overall estrogen. Okay.
Right.
Which is only just like one little
It's
piece
the
of the
tip of the iceberg.
puzzle,
It's
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And and so to to have an extensive blood work done and be able to see, okay, your liver's really struggling. If we can help to detox and heal your liver, your testosterone's naturally going to start to move up through there,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, through my studies, I'm big into. I also test man's DHEA level,
Yep.
and I also test pregnenolone, which a
Yeah.
lot of providers don't do. But what I found through my studies is those are the building blocks of building our sex hormones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if those are low, for both actually men or women, because I test that on women as well,
Right. Yeah.
is I'm like, if you're pregnant alone, so just so that the people listening understand, so we have cholesterol, which is super important for our body, and
Mm-hmm.
that gets made into pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is considered like the grandmother sex hormone.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets made into progesterone, into DHEA, and that gets made into the various, estrogens and testosterone,
Right.
right? But if pregnenolone is low, and that's a very easy supplementation, well, no wonder your progesterone's going to be low, or no wonder your testosterone's going to be low,
Yeah.
right? And so through like looking into this, I started to investigate this, and I was like, why in the world do we not talk about pregnenolone enough?
Right.
Well, do you know what I learned?
What's that?
So the FDA, so if pregnenolone is considered a food,
Mm-hmm.
so therefore it cannot be prescribed.
Ah,
So because it cannot be a prescription, uh, there wasn't money to be made off of that.
right.
So then they went down the hormone cascade and said, okay, well, we can prescribe progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, right?
Right. Right.
And and so I just thought, wow, that was so amazing to me that and in mainstream medicine, it's not really talked about because they're
Oh,
they're not really, told about
there, get back. That was weird.
that.
Yeah. Well, and let's even take that a step further, John. So they're not prescribing for pregnenolone because it's not a prescription. But what you said previously is that pregnenolone is made from cholesterol.
Cholesterol.
And I don't know if you see this consistently, but when I see somebody with low testosterone, I see low cholesterol.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely a huge thing. Both, I mean, how many times have you done blood work on a man or woman and they have, say, like 130 cholesterol, and their
Yeah.
doctor told them, "Oh, good job, you got low
Oh,
cholesterol."
way to go. I'm like, no, you're gonna die.
I'm like, you realize you can't even make sex hormones unless you're over 140? I mean,
Right.
like, and we want
Yeah,
to be up around 200, right? So it's like,
exactly.
oh
Yeah.
yes, I
I know, and
know.
everybody's like flabbergasted. I'm like, no, cholesterol is like the mother hormone maker. Like you have to have cholesterol to make any of your hormones. So
Yeah.
yeah, when you have low cholesterol, so those of you who are listening and are on a cholesterol lowering drug and you're feeling off hormonally, that could be your issue. So I would go into a walk-in clinic, get at least your cholesterol tested, and like, oh, okay, I'm below, anything below 170, I'm like red flag, right? And but
Hmm.
like John was saying, if you're below
Yeah.
140, you're not making squat
Yeah.
for sex hormones, you
Yeah.
know. And I see that more and more and more all the time, way more than I did 10 years ago.
Hmm.
All these low cholesterol issues. And it goes back to toxicity, right? Because our liver, our gallbladder is so toxic, and we've got a lot of this fatty tissue and all these things going on. And you need cholesterol for your brain. And your brain,
Hmm.
what's in our brain is our pituitary gland. What's our pituitary gland do? It talks to our liver, it talks
Hmm.
to our sex organs. And so
Yeah.
we've got this whole feedback loop going on that's so dependent on having good cholesterol, good fats in our body. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we could talk about this just as much
Yes.
all day long. I get so angry about it.
I know. I feel so bad for like my parents' generation because they were fed the biggest lie, that low fat is what will save you from heart disease,
Right. And it's just
and
made
so
it worse. Cancer is worse. I mean, all this stuff is
yes,
worse because of bad fats, no fat,
yes,
low fat. Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
Have some canola oil. Let's see how you're doing.
yes,
No, no, no. Go eat
yeah.
butter. Like the men are so excited when I say, okay, your cholesterol is low, your testosterone
Hmm.
is low, and their wife's in the office with them. And I'm like, what I want you to do is I really want you to eat butter. And they'll look at
Yes,
their wife, they're like, did you hear that?
yeah.
I can have butter again. I'm like, yes, please go eat butter.
Hmm. I
Yeah,
know people are blown away when I tell them I have 4 eggs every morning, with
exactly.
whatever. And I
Yeah.
have organic grass-fed butter with that. And I just,
Load it
it's
up.
so
Your body
important.
loves it.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. You will live longer eating that way.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
was
in fact,
traveling with my son one time, and I eat not carnivore, but I going towards that. I don't eat a ton of, other stuff. I eat a lot of meat, let's put it that way. A lot of meat and a lot of fat.
hmm.
And somebody said to me, because they thought that I was like my son's girlfriend. We
Hmm.
were traveling in Ireland together, and I'm like, no. He's like appalled, he's 19 years old. He's like, this is weird. And she goes, are you vegan? Like, oh heavens no, girl. This right here
Yes.
is from eating meat.
Yes, exactly.
Eating
And
lots of
lots
butter,
of good fats. Yes.
lots of good fats. This is, yeah, less wrinkles, good fats.
Exactly. Yeah, you're speaking my language with that. I mean, I can't wait for more and more people to learn this. I just say, eat your, I mean, I cook with olive oil, avocado oil. I like beef tallow, coconut oil,
Yep.
and uh, and then
Get in your
butter. Those are,
saturated fats for sure.
yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know we kind of got to wrap this up a little bit. So a couple more things. What are some of your favorite testosterone boosters for those listening? Clearly, we want them to join, schedule an appointment with you, but to just go start doing something, what would that be?
Yeah. So if I was just to give some tips right away, it would be get at least 30 minutes of sunshine a day.
Nice.
Okay. And we both know by doing blood work how low everyone is on vitamin D,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so amazing. Even people that are regularly in the sun still have low
Yep.
vitamin D levels.
Yeah.
Um, so vitamin D is one of my favorite, like most important supplements for hormones. When it comes specifically to testosterone, uh, magnesium, zinc. Uh, I know you like your amino acids, so D-aspartic acid
Yep.
is actually been shown to help testosterone production,
Okay. Good to know.
specifically raising FSH and LH in men. So especially men that are having trouble making like their sperm counts low.
Yeah.
Uh, I like to get about 3,000 milligrams of D-aspartic acid.
Okay.
So
I did
so
not know
there's a,
that.
there's a
That's a good
little
one to
tip.
learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. And then let's touch on women for just a second. What happens when a woman has low testosterone?
So they will also have trouble with muscle tone. Okay, so that's a big thing. So they'll feel like it's harder to build muscle as well,
Yeah.
and they will. there can be a energy problem as well with women who have low testosterone. Uh, their libido will be low as well.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, so, those are some of the biggest ones to me is energy, uh, libido, and then muscle tone. And, that kind of a mindset too. So there's a little bit of a mentality thing that's very healthy for women as well, to just feel empowered and to feel,
100%.
like needing to take on the day, needing to, I mean, we know how many women help to like lead their family just as much, as men do and take on the challenges of the day. And most women are working as well.
Mhm.
So there's a mindset thing that's very helpful as well. And
Yeah.
I don't think that that's addressed as much as it should be, is the depression and the mental aspect of balancing hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always address that with my women clients because,
Mhm.
we'll check cortisol, we'll check other things. Of course, I always start with amino acid therapy, balancing the brain so we can make sure that pituitary is doing well in that vagal nerve pathway.
Mhm.
But then when we're checking all this other stuff and I see their testosterone is low, I'm like, and I have so many women just cry in my office, John. I'm like, you don't make much, right?
Mhm.
Your testosterone
Mhm.
is so low. That affects your bone density. It affects your brain
Yes.
fog, how well you process, what is your stress resilience,
Mhm.
all those kind of things. Your cortisol is so low. We've got this pregnenolone steal going on. So cortisol
Mhm.
is going to steal from pregnenolone to make
Yeah.
cortisol so you survive. And so then you don't have anything to make your sex hormones. I mean, there's this whole cascade going on that
Yeah.
they're not hearing anywhere else. And so that's why I love what you're doing. Because it's so important. And I love the fact that you're a man helping men. Because right? And you can speak their
Yeah.
language and talk to all those little nuances because us as women, even with my own husband, I'm like, what's wrong? Well, maybe it is testosterone, things you just don't even
Yeah.
think about. And this is what I do
Yeah.
every single day. Um,
Yeah.
but it's empowering to know that there's a physical answer and that you're not just losing your freaking mind.
Yeah. Mhm. And I would just give a suggestion to the women that are listening to this, and they are thinking, boy, that sounds like a lot of the symptoms that my husband or my man has.
Yep.
Well, I know it's a very hard thing trying to figure out how am I going to approach my man about this, right?
Right.
And so it is very challenging. I think for me, if so if a woman came to their man and said, honey, I'm just concerned that I want to make sure your health overall is as optimal as it can be. Because with low testosterone, you have a 30% chance to die from all diseases.
Yeah.
You're talking all diseases, right? So you don't have to talk about, hey, I know you're having trouble in the bedroom, or hey, I feel like, you don't want them to feel like they're lazy or that they're not driven, right?
Mhm.
But just come as like from like your nurturing feminine aspect of you saying, I love you
Love
and I
you.
care about your overall health, right? And so what do you think if we just check your lab, let's do some blood work and just see how you're doing.
Yeah,
And I just want you to feel the best you can feel.
absolutely. And share this podcast with them. And so then Dr.
Yeah.
John can say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So,
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners with?
I just think I would encourage all the people listening to this to really reach out to a functional blood work specialist like you or me that sees blood work in a different way, and that can look at the body in a more optimal way and not just the way Western medicine has been trained to do that. And because really what we're doing is the future of our healthcare.
Right.
And we know that the generation behind us is they're actually becoming more aware of supplements and things, but they're also the sickest generation.
Yes.
And so we have to start to lead our families and take control of our own health. Uh, just for the sake of our children and to start to teach them, a better way.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. It also is also important. I love the fact that part of your driving force is to just create strong men, or, give men their strength back. That seems to have been, lost over the
Yeah.
generations, unfortunately. All of Dr. John's information will be in the show notes where you can contact him. But why don't you give a shout out? Where would you love people to go first if they're going to contact you?
Yeah, first I would say check out my website. It's drtbooster.com.
Okay.
So that's me, Dr. T Booster. And so check out that, and then you can follow me on social media at Dr. T Booster. And so thanks so much for having me on. And
Oh, we love having this conversation, John. I appreciate you very much. And thank you everyone for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. God bless.